My name is Sylvia Toy St. Louis, and this is an interview with Darko Duilo of Split, Croatia. I'm very excited about talking to Darko because I feel like I actually know him, and I have never met him in real life, but his personality is big. It comes across on the internet, and I'm very excited about this interview. It's nice to meet you, Darko, and thank you for taking part in this interview. My first question is, can we start with you telling me a little more about your background and how you sustain and have sustained your creative life?
Well, hello Sylvia, Ivana, Matt, Pascal, Angelina and all the rest from the team that organized this video interview series with experimental cinema directors, presenters, promoters, producers. So glad to be part of this project. It's my pleasure. Let me start with your first question. As you noticed from my bio, I'm a social sciences professor and worked for more than 10 years in media, writing articles for local papers. So I'm financed from almost everything that I'm doing except this video production, experimental cinema work. I'm just waiting for a new job and looking forward. That won't stop my passionate video works creating or promoting in the nearest future. I quit with the presentation of jobs forcefully a few years ago, as you know, and I turned to producing and released more than 200 experimental movies as Audrey Foster called them street cinema, street movies. Some of them are slightly different, but I'm walking and recording what I'm seeing and forming these time lapses and time freezing moments in light filmora editing software with old cam and Chinese mobile, plastic mic, computer old more than 13 years. But I think that looks good and that effective, because last 30 or so of my projects been watched by more than 100 people, and it's my pleasure to satisfy the audience with what am I doing. For years I worked as a professor, handbooks and syllabuses writer and constructor at the maritime universities here in Split. That's one of the opportunities for the next step of my professional career. And sorry to say, but the situation here and the region where I'm living is not too good for turning this what I'm doing with the experimental video into professional phase. You know, those compromises are uh, something that actually pulling you out and demotivating, because I'm living at a place where, as Jürgen Habermas once stated, we need 100 more years just to sustain and defeat Christianity, not in person or in persons, but in spirit over time, and modeling social actors' interactions. Partitocracy is not democracy, and what we're living here is more or less partitocracy. No, I despise politics in any sense. It makes me sick.
Darko, I subscribe to your YouTube channel, and I tried to spend a bit of time watching so that I could better tailor interview questions for you. So I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't know what to expect because I've known you mostly as a curator and commenting on social media. Am I wrong in guessing that you started posting these sort of diary type videos with a fair amount of self-referentiality early in the pandemic, like right around the time everybody started locking down in 2020? In the very first video that I watched on your YouTube channel, it almost feels like an introduction where you literally enter the frame in a bathrobe. It was so interesting.
Yes, pandemics, Corona pandemic, was one of the main negative motivations for me to do something during lockdowns, after I lost a job or two or several of them, and I found myself on the streets, walking around trying to catch parts of the atmosphere of my closer place, and that turned into three series of pandemic works. I threw my mask away after that and started working on movies that are closer to academic, formal, experimental cinema. My personal experience started when I was just a kid. I was 20 or 30 years old, worked with Super 8, then turned to video, digital video then, and I kept on basics. I'm following techniques and technology, but I feel better this way. So it could be said, as I noticed before, that those are street movies, but not just them. There are a lot of metaphysics and symbolics and a lot of love and a lot of understanding for suffering of the nature and the people. I'm trying to express something good like when you dive deep into dark sea and then dive out and feeling oxygen and turn that into pastels, into more vivid colors for optimism. And I'm composing soundtracks out of natural sounds, soundscapes, performed guitar sounds that I'm playing by myself, and short piano extracts created with a PC, piano recording software, more or less playing with my voice rarely, and almost everything that compares my movie soundtracks was made by myself, although I like to work with other people. Sometimes I'm sharing time with some friends and I'm reworking their ideas during production period.
One of the first videos that I watched on your YouTube channel was Hallelujah Noah. And what you say about this is, my primary intention was to highlight the emptiness of the potential post-pandemic world in modest dimensions and with emphasis on the paradox of the expected positive ecological aspect of lockdown in the context of a personal remark of cloacal clots of regenerative, natural, primordial soup. I would love to hear more about that. And any other exhibitions that you're working on or have participated in recently.
Oh yes, you notice Hallelujah Noah. Hallelujah Noah was composed after Maria Felix Corporal, very talented and interesting lady, called me to participate at Bologna Review. Year before, the Hood integrated one of my clips into her chant for pandemic, done with the several experimental cinema directors from all over the world. Finn Harbour made the soundtrack for that movie, and Chant for Pandemic was presented at the various venues. So next year I made one by myself, and I'm using this opportunity to give a big thank to those selectors in Bologna, as Magma Art selectors in Italy too, Enrico and the rest of that team. They took one of my movies, some of other works represented in Greece and several others European countries. Well, I felt very bad at the time, just walking around and noticing a lot of polluted water, a lot of disbanded constructions, people without perspective, and what's the main greater and greater distinction between sexes, and lesser and lesser chance to establish trust and love between male and female. So I said to myself, okay, at least those animals could be saved. That's why I shoot part of that movie at the city zoo, only domestic animals going first. But there was in a hurry because all that affected their lives. It's not easy with the animals to gather them 2 by 2 for the ark. And the arks are minds. We're traveling each in its own mind-constructed ark, paper arks. You can cut yours out of papers full of material of no one interests. Some other exhibitions, well, I must mention this summer's 3 days of experimental cinema presentation on the island of Raj, 30 kilometers waterline from Split, place where I'm living all my life. I spent 15 years outside Split, and I think I'll never leave this town, although it's not much. Dirty, old, and the people are rude. Southern Slavs, Balkans, but you get used. You can present yourself in a different way. Who cares? They're not biting, not the animals. Place is Ball Culture Center, organized exhibition, several days of exhibition that integrated 3 days of experimental cinema presentations under progressive cinema title. I was selector for the shorts, experimental films, and that was my first solo exhibition review. One of my friends chose between my movies, 2 45 minutes long sets, and I'm very glad and proud that someone gave me that opportunity. On the 3rd day, 2 classic German avants were presented, and I must say that I really enjoyed, because after 2 or 3 years without working on projections, presentations, and creating lists, I felt need for such a expression, different than producing by yourself. I hope there will be more of those events in the future. That does not depend on me. I'm a small particle here. Easiest wind can blow me away. So I need to collaborate with various people. Some of them are not easy to establish civilized and intellectual contacts. Sorry to say, but we are where we are.
Darko, I often think of curators like yourself as people who know everybody. But of course, everybody in the world, but we're talking about the art world, everybody in the art world has to start somewhere. Um, how did your first opportunities as an artist come about? And do you feel like you've solidified a base of followers and contacts? Um, I guess what I'm saying is, how's your network?
Yes, curating work. I started 15 years ago here in Split, and year after year I met more and more people. I've been introduced with more and more people. Some of them are or my guests here, like Mary Craven, Mario Mentrep, Kerstin Smelka, Razvet Rashidi, presenting Experimental Cinema Society from Dublin. As I see, he is presenting Mario's and Kerstin Krampus extended cinema version in Berlin these days. So that's interesting how those people are connecting independently of me and my presentational work here. They're been very pleasant society, and I'm looking for a chance to meeting at least some of them again once in a life, or we're living what my friend Peter Temer said. He's Australian senior professor of film and very nice guy, maintaining Friends of the Armchair Traveler blog. You can find some interesting posts connected with film and experimental media on that blog. So you can see for that we are poles apart. It's not easy to connect all those people together. Some of them called me after their movies were presented, and info about projections was put on the World Wide Web, offering me better copies, their new movies. Some of them I was seeking for alone, and then friends, and so I must say that it was my pleasure to meet such a wonderful bunch of great people. I love you all, and I've done what was in my power to present those people correctly, present their works correctly. I hope I done that well. Someone still waiting, some movies are still waiting, some authors are still waiting to be presented, but I was forced to leave that place, so I'll see what could I do in nearest or future, so to say.
Every artist has a handful of other artists that they look to for inspiration, guidance. For you, is there a particular artist or filmmaker, etc., that inspired you to pursue your career as a filmmaker?
As I mentioned before, I started to manipulate with movies in form of experimental media producing when I was very young. I attended video informatics school when I was 12 or 13 years old, and started working with the Super 8, and became a passionate collector and watcher of other people works. Some classics, like, let me mention Piero Bagellini, Italian underrated experimental cinema director, or Udo Miss, Belgian author, less subliminal but theatrically coded, working more with the people, less with the material and closest, like Piero Bargallini. Then classic authors like James Broughton, Mary Menken, Hollis Frampton, of course, Kenneth Anger. James Broughton is one of my favorites. This is his book of poetry.
So, can you talk a little bit about how you find yourself, Darko Duilo, the artist, and your place in the cinema world?
Well, how do I find myself and my place in the cinema world? Interesting. I'm a lonely, maybe a little bit lonely, but I'm very communicative and enjoy other people's society in a way. Marginal director, but extremely connected with the conventional academic or sub-academic experimental cinema. I'm educated in a way, but spending more and more time in a lunatic trance, and then I need a coffee with a friend or some good chat with some other, let me say, lost soul.
I included in your interview questions a quote from Jonas Mekas. He said, "I make movies, therefore I live." What do you think about that? That is to say, why does Darko Duilo make movies?
Well, I like good old Jonas, but never heard about that sentence. I like words apart and others, throwing words out of language, any language. And there are more words that should be thrown out from any language. He's a very interesting guy. I like Jonas, I like his movies, but never heard that he made movies, therefore he live. I'm not in a position to make movies for a living or something, so let me say that I'm making movies so to felt life after time passes. The worst thing would be to say something like, I'm not living, that's why I'm making movies. It's in a Kenneth Hampson style, ideologically formed thought. I don't like such thoughts. They're not optimistic. I could make someone sad. Well, about other topics, there are many of them. I hope at least some of us get a chance to get closer, have a coffee, chat, get introduced, maybe on some of these experimental cinema festivals or wherever. And if any person of such an interest felt need or will to talk with me about anything connected with these agendas or any others, feel free to contact me. I'll leaving my emails everywhere, putting almost everything I finished on the YouTube and other channels, Daily Motion or Vimeo, and that's what I got to say. And of course, thank you so much, dear Sylvia, Ivana, Matt, Angelina, Pasquale, and all the others connected with this wonderful project.